This timeline starts with Raditz arriving in front of Piccolo. After Piccolo blasted him, and he does nothing to him, he was about to blast Piccolo in return. Normally, Raditz was interrupted by a scouter picking up another high power level. In this timeline, Raditz isn't interrupted by that, so he blasts Piccolo. Since Raditz wouldn't hold back, this would have killed Piccolo. Of course, this would kill Kami too, so the Dragon Balls become inactive. Regardless, Raditz's scouter then picked up on another big power level, so he started to fly towards it. Meanwhile, at Kame House, Goku would have just arrived there with Gohan. Their conversation goes essentially the same, until Bulma asks about the stone on Gohan's hat. Goku would be confused, as he would say it's a 4-star Dragon Ball, but this is when he realizes it turned into stone. Of course, this would freak them out, as it means something happened to Kami. However, they are then interrupted by the arrival of Raditz, which they would be much more cautious in this initial meeting. So, Krillin wouldn't be hit through the wall, as they would have kept their distance from Raditz. Regardless, Goku's true origins are revealed, but they also find out that Raditz killed Piccolo out in the wastelands. Anyway, Raditz would still try to get Goku to join him, but he refuses, so he kidnaps Gohan and tells him to kill 100 humans by tomorrow, or else he'll kill Gohan. He then flies off, which is when Goku, Krillin, and Roshi come up with their original plan of attacking Raditz together. Since Piccolo isn't alive to get in the way, they all head after Raditz, with Goku having to sense his power level to find them. When they arrived, they would prepare to fight Raditz together, but as Piccolo pointed out in the manga, Goku, Krillin, and Roshi would not stand a chance against Raditz. So, even in a 3-on-1 fight, Raditz is easily beating them all down. Eventually, he would decide to start picking them off, so he would use his double Sunday to kill both Krillin and Roshi. Of course, this would anger Goku, so he would start attacking Raditz out of desperation, though he would be beaten down easily, especially now that he is alone. For the sake of this timeline, so that Gohan doesn't intervene, I'm going to say that they're too far from Raditz's space pod for Gohan to see what is happening. So, after having gotten Goku on the ground, it would give him one last chance to join them. Of course, Goku refused to, so Raditz killed him as well. Now that Goku is dead, he would get in contact with Nappa and Vegeta, saying that Kakarot was killed, but he managed to take his son, so they'll have him on their side. He then goes to the space pod, but when he opens it, Gohan tries to flee. He easily stops Gohan by grabbing him by his tail and tells him that he will be trained by him now to become like a true Saiyan. His training of Gohan would be even more ruthless than Piccolo, since he would be teaching Gohan to become a ruthless warrior as well. So, while he would mainly beat up Gohan to make him stronger, he would also work on instilling the values of a Saiyan warrior into him. During this time of training Gohan, Raditz would also start eliminating the Earthlings, so that they could sell the planet. In the manga, Raditz mentioned that it would take about a month to get the Earth ready for selling, so a month would pass of him killing the Earthlings and training Gohan, until no more humans were left alive. By this time, Gohan still wouldn't be on Raditz's side, but he would have started going down that path, as Raditz probably forced him to kill some of the humans. Anyway, he then forces Gohan back into the space pod, as he gets in contact with Vegeta and Nappa. He tells them that the Earth is ready for selling and that they are on their way to their location, which it takes the two about a year to arrive on the planet Vegeta and Nappa are on. Once there, he would explain in detail about what happened on Earth, and how he took Gohan because of his high potential. Though, since they are trying to train him to be a Saiyan, and Gohan is an Earthling name, they would decide to give Gohan a Saiyan name, which they choose Satsu. Since Goku's family seemed to be named after root vegetables, I chose Gohan's Saiyan name based on the Japanese word for sweet potato. Regardless, now that the Saiyans are back together, they would go on to conquer the planet that Raditz mentioned in the manga that they needed a 4th Saiyan's help for. Of course, Satsu would be defeated a lot throughout the time of conquering this planet. However, because of his Saiyan blood, his power would grow faster each time. Also, not only would Raditz be training him in the ways of being a Saiyan, but Vegeta and Nappa would as well, though some of Satsu's mannerisms would influence them as well. They likely grow closer as a group and cooperate more in attacks, instead of just attacking alone. Kind of like how Gohan got Piccolo to stop being so much of a loner and got him to work with the other heroes, Satsu would get the Saiyans to work together. In between their battles on this planet, both the Saiyans and Satsu would tell stories about things that happened throughout their lives. Though, in Satsu's case, he might tell stories about what Goku did on Earth. So, eventually, he might have brought up the Dragon Balls in his stories, and how they are able to grant wishes. This would pique the Saiyans' interest, but they would also be cautious enough to take out their scouters, so that Frieza couldn't listen in on them, which Satsu would explain what he knew about them, which mainly is how many there were, how they can get any wish, and how they were tied to the life of Kami, and his life was tied to Piccolo's. He would explain how Piccolo was the green guy that Raditz killed, so it made the Earth Dragon Balls inert. Of course, that would likely anger Vegeta, but Raditz mentions that Piccolo looked like a Namekian, so there could be Dragon Balls on planet Namek. Before planning to get the Dragon Balls, they might plan to overthrow Frieza, since they would be tired of being under him. So, their main plan would be to continue conquering planets for Frieza, while using the Zenkai boost to their advantage. They would also train as well, so that their power would grow exponentially. Satsu would likely teach him things like suppressing their power and how to sense power levels without their scouter. It's likely the Saiyans heard rumors of Frieza having a power level of over 500,000, though they also likely heard the rumor that Frieza can transform. They likely don't know about anything past Frieza's second form, so they probably only know about Frieza having a form with a power level over 1 million. This would cause them to continue the process of using Zenkai boosts to make their power levels above 1 million, just to be safe. Which, this would be easier to hide after they learned how to suppress their powers, but it would also take them years to do so. It's hard to give a guess on how many years this could take, but I decided that I'd say it would take about 12 years, so they would reach the level of strength they wanted around the time that the Buu Saga would have happened. I put Vegeta's power level at about 3 million, Nappa's at 1,800,000, Raditz is at 1,200,000, and Satsu's at 900,000. By the time they decided to challenge Frieza, there would have been a noticeable increase in their power levels, even when suppressed, so they likely would have been doing missions with the Ginyu Force. The day they decided to rebel against Frieza, the four of them would attack the Ginyu Force. Vegeta would take on Captain Ginyu, which he wouldn't stand a chance against the Saiyan Prince. It's likely that Vegeta would kill him before he could use his body-changing technique. As for Nappa, he would take on Recoome, though he would finish him off quickly with his Bomber DX. Raditz would fight both Burter and Jace, as he would take them out with his Double Sunday. Lastly, Satsu would kill Goldo by using the Double Sunday as well, since he was taught it by Raditz. When Frieza eventually notices that the Ginyu Force has gone missing, and the Saiyan starts returning to him, it wouldn't take him long to figure out what was going on. So, Frieza would head to the Saiyans' location himself, since if they can take out Captain Ginyu, no one else in his army can stand up to them. Together, the Saiyans have a power level of 6,900,000, while Firstborn Frieza has a power level of 530,000. Since the Saiyans would be fighting Frieza together, he wouldn't be able to get any hits on them. However, with them being cocky, they would likely taunt him to transform. Frieza would comply and turn into his second form. While this would put his power level above Satsu's, he would still be weaker than the other three. So, he's still getting pummeled, but he would taunt the Saiyans by saying he has 2 more transformations. Of course, they would allow him to transform again. His third form would put him between Raditz and Nappa in power. The timer would be shocked that he was still getting beaten down in this form, so he would finally go into his final form. Initially, he was only using about 2% of his power, which makes him stronger than all the Saiyans individually, but when they fight together, he can't get many hits in. It's what caused him to start using 10% of his power, which puts him above all the Saiyans. At this point, he would start to toy around with them. When he starts to target Satsu, Raditz would get in the way to try and defend his nephew, but to no avail. Though, Frieza being preoccupied with these two gives Vegeta the chance to make the artificial moon. All the Saiyans would look at it and become great apes, so Vegeta's power level is now 30 million, Nappa's is 18 million, Raditz's is 12 million, and Satsu's is 9 million, so they have a combined power level of 69 million. The Saiyans would not hold back from pummeling Frieza together, so the timer would be stomped into the ground by them. Anytime he thinks he gets an opening to get away, another one sends him crashing into the ground. Over time, he would start to use more of his power. However, this beating would also be wearing him out, so his power level would be dropping. When he goes into his full power form, he would actually be fighting at about 60% of his full power, so his power level would be 72 million. This would make it a close fight with the Saiyans, but Frieza would have a slight advantage. They would be trading blows with each other, but Frieza would eventually target their tails with his death beams. He starts with Nappa and Vegeta, so they revert to their base forms. He then repeats the process with Raditz and Satsu, so all the Saiyans are back in their base form. Since Frieza would be back on top now, he would be toying with them, though he would also decide to start picking them off one by one, since this has gone on long enough. Since he's seen Raditz try to protect Satsu earlier, he would start with Satsu. He raises him into the air like he did with Krillin, as he then causes him to explode. Over the last 12 years, all the Saiyans got close with Satsu, but Raditz especially. They were still treated as low-class Saiyans, even though they did get somewhat closer with Vegeta and Nappa. So, Raditz would have grown closer with his nephew, and potentially became like a father to the boy. So, when he sees his nephew die right before his very eyes, he would be angry, to say the least. As his head starts jerking back, lightning starts to strike the ground around them. The ground would start crumbling at Raditz's feet, as his hair flickers between black and yellow. And as the lightning strikes get closer, he lets out a yell. As his hair spikes up and fully turns yellow, he would then turn his gaze towards Frieza, as the Tyrant was worried about if this was the Super Saiyan of legend. With Vegeta and Nappa, they would be in disbelief that a low-class Saiyan like Raditz was able to become the Super Saiyan. Anyway, this would bring Raditz's power level up to 60 million. With the beating Frieza received, his power would have dropped to 60 million. Also, because of the stamina drain in his full power form, his power level would still be dropping. So, when Raditz starts to knock the Tyrant around, the fight would start even at first. They would be going blow for blow with each other, but the longer the fight goes on, the weaker Frieza gets. The Raditz is also a more cautious Saiyan, so the moment he gets to finish off Frieza, he would take that chance. He would likely use his double Sunday against Frieza and vaporize the Tyrant with it. Of course, he didn't drop to his base form since his body couldn't handle the strain of Super Saiyan forever. Since Frieza was now defeated, the Saiyans would gather Satsu's body, as they had a plan. Now that they knew about the Dragon Balls, they would head to planet Namek to revive Satsu. Which, since they also know that the Dragon Balls would be tied to the lives of one of the Namekians, they would be cautious in killing any of them. Instead, they would torture the information they need to summon the dragon out of them. It's hard to say if the Namekians would give this information up, but I think they would crack eventually and summon the dragon for the Saiyans. They didn't use the wish to revive Satsu, so they grew close to him. The other wish would be used to make the 4 of them immortal, though for the third wish, they didn't have anything in mind for it, so they dismissed Purunga. Also, now that Frieza is dead, this likely would have caught the attention of King Cold. He would have been searching for the Saiyans, and they would likely realize this, but they don't know how strong he is, they just figure he's stronger than Frieza, so they would likely stay hidden from them while they train in preparation to fight him. Throughout this training, the others would have been trying to access the Super Saiyan transformation. Satsu would be the second one to unlock the Super Saiyan form since he was already being trained to tap into his anger. The third person to get it would be Vegeta, as he unlocked it out of anger since 2 low-class Saiyans got it before him. Lastly, Nappa would unlock the Super Saiyan form out of anger as well that he was being surpassed by someone like Raditz. Regardless, after they finish unlocking this form, they would go and confront King Cold. Since Vegeta didn't get the pleasure of killing Frieza, he would step up to take on King Cold himself. Because of their training, in combination with the Super Saiyan form, he would be strong enough to take on King Cold alone. Their fight would be over fast since he would be pummeling the Tyrant easily. Before he is killed, he'll likely offer planets to Vegeta in exchange for his life. However, he refuses, as he then blasts King Cold with a Gallic gun and kills him. With the Tyrants all dead, the Saiyans would take over the Empire, with Vegeta crowning himself as the monarch. From then on, the Saiyans would continue conquering planets for fun, and to grow the Empire. They might put out a universe-wide broadcast for any surviving Saiyans to come join them. We don't know if there were any other surviving Saiyans besides Broly, Paragus, and Tarble, but assuming that there is, they would come and join up with Vegeta and the others. This would allow them to slowly rebuild the Saiyan race over time. Speaking of Broly, they might eventually discover him on planet Vampa. Of course, Paragus would try to get Broly to attack Vegeta, but with the Saiyans having immortality, they would continuously grow stronger in the fight with Broly. It would basically be useless for them to fight since all of them grow stronger, and without them killing Paragus, they might get the advantage over Broly and defeat him, since they would have the Super Saiyan form while Broly doesn't. After winning the fight, they might be able to talk Paragus down from his revenge plan, as Vegeta had no choice in his father's actions. So, while Paragus is reluctant to do so, Paragus and Broly would join up with the others, since it gets them off planet Vampa. Now that these Saiyans join them, they might use the Namekian Dragon Balls to make them immortal too. Also, speaking of the Super Saiyan forms, it's likely that they would teach Broly how to become a Super Saiyan and that they would learn how to surpass these forms eventually. Of course, they would unlock Super Saiyan 2 first, as they would have sensed there was something beyond Super Saiyan after they mastered it. Because of their immortal bodies, they also would have been able to push this even further by unlocking the Super Saiyan 3 form, since the stamina drain wouldn't be too much of an issue. Lastly, they would likely tap into their more primal side and unlock the Super Saiyan 4 transformation. Regardless, with the power of these forms in combination with their immortal bodies, they would make the Saiyan Empire. With King Vegeta leading them and the Tyrant's gone, he becomes the next Emperor of the universe. This was kind of a joke chapter I wanted to include, with it being about a timeline where Raditz betrays Vegeta. It was also based on the concept of Raditz managing to become a Super Saiyan on Earth, which, it would have been a long shot for Raditz to do so, but like I mentioned before, some of these stories are meant to be wacky on purpose. Regardless, we open on Earth, as Gohan has just hit Raditz in the chest with his headbutt. Of course, this injures Raditz. It gives Goku the opportunity to grab him from behind. Though, this is also the moment where Raditz's anger could come out. All his life, he has been beaten down by the Saiyans above him. Now, he's being beaten down by a Saiyan beneath him, and a child just managed to injure him. With his life about to end, combined with his anger towards the heroes and other Saiyans, he might start to transform. As lightning starts striking around him, and the ground starts crumbling at his and Goku's feet, his head starts to jerk back. His hair would be flashing between black and yellow. At the same time he lets out a scream and is surrounded by a bright light. Piccolo finished charging the special beam cannon and fired it at him, though when the smoke cleared, Raditz would still be standing, though his armor was damaged even more from this. His hair is also solid yellow now, as he has unlocked the Super Saiyan transformation. According to an information card that was released alongside the DVS Broly movie, Raditz's full power was 1600. So, as a Super Saiyan, his power level would be 80,000. This means that the heroes wouldn't stand a chance against him now, as he easily breaks free from Goku's grip. He would then fly towards Piccolo and blast him through the chest at point blank range, killing him. After Piccolo falls to the ground, he turns his attention to Goku, who was still lying on the ground since his ribs were broken at the time. Raditz would start to pummel Goku around at first, though he would soon get bored and finish him off too. After seeing Goku die, Gohan likely gets another rage boost and tries to attack Raditz, but he couldn't do anything against him this time. Instead, Raditz would swiftly kill him as well, which leaves him as the last one standing. Though he then reverses his base form and collapses to the ground from the strain of the form in combination with his injuries. However, Roshi, Krillin, and Bulma would then arrive in their airplane. Although he would be weakened at this time, Raditz would be able to rise to his feet as he prepares to take on Roshi and Krillin. Together, they would be able to put up a somewhat good fight, but they can't do a lot of damage to the Saiyan. So, he would finish them both off with his double Sunday, though he collapses again after they're killed. During his fight with the heroes, Vegeta and Nappa likely would have been listening to how things went down. Assuming Raditz said something about the Super Saiyan, since that's what he would have figured the transformation was, Vegeta would have been in disbelief about this. He would have wanted to see this for himself, mainly just to put Raditz back into his place, but there's no way a low-class Saiyan like Raditz became the Super Saiyan of legend. Anyway, Vegeta and Nappa would inform him how they're on their way to Earth. With how Raditz was treated by them before, it likely wouldn't take him long to figure out what Vegeta plans to do. Though before he could start the training preparation for Vegeta's arrival, he would have to heal from his injuries first. After he did heal, he only decided to train so that he could unlock the Super Saiyan form again. In between his training, he would also hunt down the Earthlings, so that the planet was ready to be sold to Frieza. It's hard to say how strong Raditz could get through training in a year, but if his training was as intense as Goku's under King Kai's, his power level would rise to about 30,000. He would likely be able to tap into the Super Saiyan form again by the time Vegeta and Nappa arrive on Earth. When they use their scouters, they would only see one power level, but the scouters would explode around the time they reach the 22,000 mark. Though, the two would likely think it was a malfunction, so they took off towards where the scouter sensed the power level. Raditz would be waiting for them, as his scouter wouldn't explode when reading their power levels. Once they arrive, Vegeta would likely taunt Raditz into showing his Super Saiyan form, so he complies. Of course, seeing this form would shock Vegeta, but he would still be cocky enough to believe he can beat Raditz. Though in this form, it boosts Raditz's power level to 1,500,000. Anyway, when the two Saiyans charged at him, Raditz would easily start pummeling them into the ground. However, Raditz is also more of a cautious Saiyan than the others, so he wouldn't give Vegeta the chance to make his artificial moon. Instead, he would use his double Sunday against them, which would easily take out the two Saiyans at once. From there, Raditz would have to worry about the threat of dealing with Frieza eventually. It's likely Frieza would have planned to get rid of Raditz, so instead of him going back to serve Frieza, he might go AWOL like how Vegeta did. Of course, Frieza would likely track him down and have his henchmen fight the Saiyan. None of them would stand a chance, not even the Ginyu Force, since he can turn into his Super Saiyan. Then when Frieza confronted him, Raditz would stand his ground against the Galactic Emperor. Since Raditz is cautious, he wouldn't hesitate to go into his Super Saiyan form, as he begins knocking Frieza around. Even though he likely would have heard the rumor about Frieza being able to transform, he wouldn't give Frieza the chance to do so. Instead, he would fight the Tyrant for a while until he was weakened enough that when he blasts him with the Shining Friday, it vaporizes the Tyrant. With Frieza gone, he could take over the Empire, but King Cold would still be out there as a threat. However, Raditz would have to train even more to have a chance to take on the Tyrant, so he wouldn't take over the Empire right away. Instead, he would bide his time and go around the universe avoiding King Cold, while he trains to take him on. This means that King Cold would have taken over the Empire after Frieza died, while he also searched for Raditz. Eventually, when Raditz was strong enough to take down Cold, he would stop trying to hide so that he could be found. King Cold wouldn't miss the opportunity to avenge his son, so he goes and confronts Raditz. Though after he turns into his Super Saiyan form, he would be able to kill Cold as well. He would then take over the Empire, and with him as the ruler, he wouldn't be nearly as ruthless as Frieza was, though he would still conquer planets, just so he could have the thrill of fighting. This would also expand his empire. I don't think he'd try to restore the Saiyan race like Vegeta would have if he became king. However, if he did happen to cross any remaining Saiyans, he would let them join his empire too, so he might end up having a family of his own with one of the remaining Saiyans. Anyway, it's not likely he would ever face any other major threats, but since he is cautious, he wouldn't slack on his training in any way. Eventually, he would likely even transcend the Super Saiyan form into Super Saiyan 2, but since he doesn't have an immortal body this time, I'll leave it up to your interpretation on if he goes further into the Super Saiyan 3 or Super Saiyan 4 forms. Regardless, with him now being the Emperor of the Universe, he would continue to grow and expand his empire.